It's a pure Michigan Monday all across the state of Michigan. Michael Patrick Shields with you here live in our American Metal Roof studio in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building, right across from the baseball stadium, just a couple blocks from the Capitol, where all the action is, but not always all the action. There was going to be some action, as I understood it. That was going to be Friday, Good Friday. In Dearborn, there at the Islamic Center of America. You know the story by now, surely you know. Anyway, that Pastor Jones, who threatened to burn the Quran on 9/11, got worldwide attention for it, is getting worldwide attention again because he wanted to have a protest outside the Islamic Center. Apparently, he was going to bring a gun, and he told everyone he was going to do that, and everybody said, "Uh-oh." So the next thing you know, he was arrested, and then they went to a jury, and a jury said, if you're going to have that protest, it's very likely that there is going to be some violence. And so now the price tag for security for Pastor Terry Jones estimated at more than $46,000 and likely to increase this week. One Detroit TV station says $31,000 has already been spent on police preparing for a protest that turned into that trial on Friday. And so where do we go from here? He says he's going to sue. And Brian Rooney, our old friend, the constitutional attorney and deputy director of the Department of Human Services, was recently with the group that is going to help out Pastor Terry Jones, as we understand, the Thomas More Law Center in Ann Arbor. Good morning, Mr. Rooney.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. How are you?
Okay, did I summarize that fairly well, that he wanted to have the protest and the city kind of shut him down? And where do we go from here? What happened?
Said I'm no longer with the Thomas More Law Center, but if they in fact are going to represent him, then they'll most likely, the first thing they'll do is file a complaint in the Eastern District of Michigan Federal Court on First Amendment grounds. And then the city will have to respond, and we'll go from there. And then a federal district judge will make a decision one way or the other.
Apparently, he's going to stage a protest this Friday now. It's going to be at Dearborn City Hall, though, instead of at the Islamic Center of America. What's the distinction? Why would he do that instead of going ahead with his plan to go to the Islamic Center? Do you know, or what do you speculate?
That makes a little more sense in the sense that, private property, you don't have a right to protest there. No, there's private property rights. But there are things known as traditional public forum, whether they're public sidewalks or city halls, that people have traditionally been allowed to speak freely at, public parks, those sorts of things. Cities, towns, counties can put reasonable time, place restriction, manner restrictions on them, but typically you can't in traditional public forums where people have always been allowed to speak publicly and freely. And so I imagine moving from the religious center to, which is probably private property, to a public property place is why he's doing it.
Not nearly as sensational, though, is it?
Oh, no. But, this guy obviously goes after the sensational headlines, and so the press likes to follow him, and I'm sure they'll follow him there, too.
He says that he was arrested for something he hadn't done, and he finds that outrageous, and that's why he's gone to the Thomas More Law Center for a possible lawsuit, as you mentioned, on First Amendment grounds. I mean, he may have a case there, mightn't he?
Yeah, if he was in fact arrested for, thinking about going to the Islamic Center, that's, not something you're supposed to be able to arrest somebody on. And the jury saying that he might have caused disruption is not what our constitutional framework's all about. I mean, if we had juries deciding whether somebody's going to cause a ruckus or not, then none of Martin Luther King's junior marches in the South or in the North even would have been allowed to happen, but thank God they did.
Well, we'll see what happens next. I guess obviously we're going to have a potential lawsuit, and he's going to try it at the Dearborn City Hall instead of the Islamic Center. But one thing is, you're right. He's got our attention, and we're curious to see what happens next. And so we appreciate you taking the call. Congratulations on the new gig, by the way, appointed by the governor, as I understand, Deputy Director of the Department of Human Services.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be part of reforming welfare in Michigan.
Well, the one-time candidate for Congress, now working for Governor Snyder here in the state capitol, and his efforts will have an effect all across the state. Travel safely, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you, Michael Patrick.
Brian Rooney, I should have asked him what's the deal this weekend with the NFL draft and the Steelers, and is there going to be a season next year and all that sort of thing. But we'll leave that for another time because it's another topic, and I don't want to surprise him there. As you know, he's a board member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and his family owns the Steelers, the famous Rooney family. And so Brian Rooney, be curious to see. Now, the NFL lockout is still going on, so they're going to have a draft anyway. And as I understand it, you can't negotiate with the players before the draft, or I think even after the draft, because of the lockout situation. Let's hope they get that settled. I wouldn't want to be without the NFL this year, would you? Governor Snyder, speaking of him, his second-floor Romney Building office is getting refitted with new bulletproof glass. I guess they just thought the seals were kind of giving way around the old glass, and so they're going to be replacing 2 windows facing Capitol Avenue and 3 overlooking Michigan Avenue. A lot of people think the governor's office is in the Capitol building. He's got a ceremonial office there, but his real office is across the street. So it's going to cost $38,000, apparently, to fix up these windows for him so he's safe and sound there in his office building. There is a lone Republican in the Hawaii State Senate. Pretty sensational stuff here. The question about whether President Obama was born in Hawaii, born in the United States, Donald Trump saying, why won't he show his birth certificate? Instead, he shows a certificate of live birth. Well, this state senator says the real issue, the real reason President Obama doesn't want to release his long-form birth certificate is because he's got something to hide, and that is the name of his actual birth father. And he says Obama was probably born in Hawaii, but the real issue is not the birth certificate, but what's on it. And it could have to do with the name on the birth certificate, who is actually listed as the father, and the citizenship of the father. And he too, like Donald Trump, can't understand why he would want to keep the birth certificate hidden. And maybe that's why. Gas prices, as you heard earlier, continue to spiral. But Trilby Lundberg, the survey editor, says we may have peaked. We may have peaked because there's a decrease in demand for gas now as people are being a little choosier about where they drive, and there's a slow in the rise of crude oil prices. So maybe all that talk you've been seeing, that scary talk about $5 and $6 a gallon, maybe that won't come to fruition. Stay tuned for more. Holland man locked up. He was arrested twice in the same night. They picked up Phu Van Mai was his name. He was on an outstanding warrant. He pretended he was sick, and the officer rolled down the window in the car so he could get some air, and he jumped out through the window and ran off. So they had to catch him again and charge him with escape. And a woman couldn't help herself. She loved shoes so much in Kalamazoo that she broke into a business, and police said, hey, what's that door doing open at this hour? And a 46-year-old ran out with a big bag of shoes. She tried to escape on a bicycle. She's going to be charged with breaking and entering. And remember, Imelda Marcos had something like 4,000 pairs of shoes, and this lady had a bag full and was trying to make a getaway. The sports story is coming next. It's Michael Patrick Shields all across Michigan.